They say betrayal always comes from those closest to you. Humanity learned that lesson in fire, vacuum, and blood, on the day the galaxy decided humans were useful and disposable. The stars had called to humanity for as long as humans had looked up from the dirt. When the first faster-than-light engine worked in the year 2179, humanity stepped into the wider galaxy with hope in its heart and fear in its bones. They were not conquerors. They were not gods. They were builders, traders, dreamers. And compared to the ancient civilizations already ruling the stars, humanity was painfully young. By the year 2335, humans had settled 40 worlds. Harsh rocks, icy moons, and storm-wrapped planets that older species had ignored. Humans adapted. They always did. Their ships were not the largest, their weapons not the strongest, but their colonies survived where others failed. Slowly, quietly, humanity earned a reputation. Stubborn, clever, and very hard to kill. That reputation caught the attention of the Stellar Accord. The Accord was a massive alliance of 11 alien species. Some were ancient beyond measure. Some were terrifying to look at. Together, they claimed to stand for peace, balance, and survival against a growing threat known as the Ravagers, a ruthless empire that stripped systems bare and erased civilizations that resisted. When the Accord asked humanity to join the war, Earth's leaders debated for weeks. They knew the risk. They knew the cost. But they also knew one simple truth: standing alone in a hostile galaxy was a death sentence. So humanity said yes. Commander Elias Rourke stood on the bridge of the UNS Horizon's Edge, watching stars slide past like frozen rain. He was not a politician. He was not a hero. He was a man who believed that if humanity wanted a future, someone had to fight for it. The Horizon's Edge jumped into Accord-controlled space, joining fleets that looked like nightmares and miracles combined. Living ships grown from coral-like organisms. Massive crystalline vessels that bent light around them. Swarms of smaller craft moving as one, controlled by hive minds that spoke in perfect unity. The aliens welcomed humanity warmly. Too warmly. They praised human courage. They admired human adaptability. They spoke of shared destiny and mutual sacrifice. To Elias, it sounded rehearsed, but he pushed the doubt aside. This was bigger than him. Bigger than Earth. The war was brutal from the start. Human soldiers fought on toxic worlds where the air burned their lungs. They held space lanes no other species could endure because of radiation storms or gravitational chaos. Where alien physiology failed, human bodies adapted with technology, stubbornness, and sheer refusal to quit. Casualties climbed into the millions. Human ships were always placed on the front lines. Always assigned the most dangerous missions. The explanation was simple: humans were resilient. Humans could handle it. And humanity believed that meant trust. Back on Earth, scientists worked without rest. Every breakthrough, stronger shields, faster engines, smarter targeting systems, was shared freely with the Accord. Humanity believed alliances were built on transparency. Humanity believed loyalty was returned in kind. Commander Rourke began to notice patterns. Accord fleets arrived late to battles humans were already bleeding in. Supply shipments to human forces were delayed or misrouted. Requests for reinforcement were denied with polite regret. Each time, there was an excuse. Each time, humanity accepted it. Until the campaign at Karen Reach. Karen Reach was a dead region of space twisted by collapsed stars and violent energy tides. The Ravagers used it as a highway, knowing most species could not survive there long. Humanity could. The Accord ordered the human fleet to hold the Reach alone. For 2 years, they did. Human crews aged under constant stress. Ships were repaired with scrap and ingenuity. Soldiers learned to sleep through explosions. The Reach became a graveyard of Ravager wrecks and human lives. When victory finally seemed close, the Accord summoned all Allied fleets to a system called Virex Station. This, they said, would be the final strike. The end of the war. Elias didn't like how urgent the message felt. Or how vague. Still, orders were orders. 32 human warships jumped to Virex Station. What awaited them was the largest fleet humanity had ever seen. Accord vessels formed vast, elegant formations, weapons powered down in apparent readiness for battle. Rourke felt a flicker of pride. Humanity had made it. They stood among giants. Then the Accord ships began to reposition, behind the human fleet. Sensors screamed warnings. Before Elias could speak, the first human cruiser vanished in a white flash. Weapons fire tore through human shields with terrifying precision. The frequencies were familiar. The targeting logic flawless. They were using human technology. The bridge of the horizon's edge erupted into chaos. Alarms wailed. Consoles shattered. Crew members shouted in disbelief. "They're firing on us," someone screamed. Rourke stared at the tactical display, his mind struggling to accept what his eyes showed. Accord vessels, once allies, were systematically destroying human ships, cutting off escape routes with calm efficiency. A broadcast flooded every channel. The speaker was a tall, many-eyed alien figure, its voice smooth and emotionless. "To all human forces. The Stellar Accord has reached a strategic resolution with the Ravager Empire. Hostilities will cease immediately." Rourke felt cold spread through his chest. "In exchange for peace," the voice continued, "human territories will be transferred. Human military assets will be neutralized. Human populations will be reassigned for productive integration." Productive integration. Slavery, wrapped in polite words. Around him, ships burned. Thousands died in seconds. The Accord did not hesitate. There was no anger in their movements. No hatred. Just calculation. Humanity had been useful. Now humanity was expendable. Rourke clenched his fists as the horizon's edge shook under impact. His people had trusted the galaxy, had bled for it, had given it everything. And now the galaxy had shown its true face. "Commander," his tactical officer said, voice breaking, "we're not going to survive this." Rourke looked at the stars outside the cracked viewport, cold, distant, uncaring. "No," he said quietly, "but humanity will." He gave the order that would change the fate of the galaxy. Prepare an emergency jump. Anywhere. And transmit everything we've learned, back to Earth. As space twisted and the ship tore itself free from the killing zone, one truth burned in every surviving human mind. The galaxy had betrayed them. And humanity was about to take everything back. Earth received the transmission 12 hours later. It arrived in fragments, damaged data packets, corrupted visuals, distorted audio filled with screams and static. At first, analysts thought it was another delayed combat report. Another loss. Another tragedy in a war that already felt endless. Then they decoded the message. Silence filled the Global Defense Council chamber as the truth unfolded on massive screens. Human ships destroyed by Allied weapons. Accord fleets firing with perfect knowledge of human defenses. The cold, calm declaration of productive integration. Slavery. For a long moment, no one spoke. President Mara Cade sat at the center of the chamber, her hands folded tightly in front of her. She had lived through the early expansion years. She had argued for joining the Stellar Accord, believing cooperation was the only way humanity could survive. Now she watched millions of lives vanish again and again on replay. "They sold us," she said finally. Her voice did not shake. That frightened people more than if it had. Across Earth and its colonies, the footage spread. Families saw sons and daughters die light years away. Workers watched ships they had helped build turn into fire. Children saw the galaxy's promise collapse into betrayal. There were riots in some cities. In others, there was only quiet. But beneath the grief, something else began to grow. Anger. Deep space relays continued to receive signals from scattered survivors. Damaged ships. Lifeboats drifting in darkness. Out of 32 warships, only 9 had escaped. Less than a quarter of the fleet. Commander Elias Rourke survived. His ship barely held together, systems held by emergency patches and human stubbornness. But the data core was intact. And inside it was something the Accord never imagined humans would use. Rourke had suspected betrayal long before Virex Station. He had quietly ordered his crew to record everything: fleet movements, command codes, tactical habits, communication patterns. Human paranoia, some would say. Human caution, history would later call it. Earth scientists tore into the data like starving wolves. Artificial intelligences ran simulations day and night. Military planners who had spent decades preparing for extinction scenarios finally found a reason to open sealed vaults. The Stellar Accord had one fatal flaw. They believed humans thought like them. They believed humans would beg, negotiate, or surrender. They were wrong. In underground facilities and orbital labs, humanity stopped asking how to survive. They started asking how to win. The first decision was painful but necessary. Earth went dark. All human systems disconnected from galactic networks. Trade lanes were abandoned. Diplomatic channels went silent. To the galaxy, humanity appeared broken, scattered, defeated. The Accord believed this confirmed their choice. Behind the silence, humanity transformed. Civilian factories became shipyards. Mining colonies became weapons forges. Old fusion plants were redesigned to power things that had never existed before. Engineers tore apart alien technology they had once admired and rebuilt it without mercy. Humanity stopped following the rules of galactic warfare. They used unpredictability, asymmetry, improvisation. Where alien designs favored elegance, humans favored redundancy. Where aliens optimized for efficiency, humans optimized for survival. Every system had backups. Every backup had another backup. Human ships were no longer beautiful. They were monsters. President Cade authorized Project Anvil. It was not a single weapon, but a philosophy. If the galaxy believed humans were weak alone, then humanity would become something the galaxy could not control together. Commander Rourke was brought home in secret. When he stepped onto Earth soil again, he fell to his knees. Not in weakness, but in relief. He had brought back proof. And proof was power. He met with military leaders, scientists, and civilian engineers. He told them everything. Not just what the Accord did, but how they thought. They don't understand sacrifice, he said. Not like we do. They calculate loss. We endure it. The Accord believed humans would accept chains to avoid extinction. They did not understand the human response to injustice. Earth's population was informed of the truth without filters. No soft language. No comforting lies. The betrayal was shown in full. The result was not panic. It was unity. Old divisions faded. Nations stopped arguing. Colonies stopped demanding independence. Humanity had an enemy now, not a theory, not a possibility, but a name and a face. Recruitment centers overflowed. Scientists volunteered for projects that would likely kill them. Civilians rationed without complaint. Parents hugged children knowing the future would be dangerous, but free. Humanity remembered something ancient. They had been betrayed before on their own planet. Exploited. Enslaved. Nearly erased. And every time, they had risen stronger. Deep in the Kuiper Belt, construction began on something the Accord would never have approved. A fleet with no central command. No single point of failure. Each ship capable of acting independently or as part of a swarm. Artificial intelligence was no longer constrained by alien ethics. Human AIS were taught creativity, deception, and controlled defiance. They learned to think like humans, not machines. One scientist summarized it best. We don't need to outgun the galaxy. We need to outthink it. Years passed in silence. The Accord grew comfortable. Human colonies were absorbed. Human populations were relocated. Resistance was minimal, or so it seemed. What the Accord did not see were the empty transports that never arrived where they were supposed to. The labor camps that quietly lost guards. The small systems where Accord ships vanished without explanation. Humanity had not disappeared. It had gone underground. Commander Rourke stood aboard a new ship years later, staring at a fleet unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. Dark hulls absorbed light. Engines left no signatures. Weapons waited, patient and hungry. He felt no joy. Only purpose. "The galaxy thinks we are broken," he said to his crew. "They think we accepted our place." The fleet powered up silently. Let's remind them what happens when you underestimate humanity. And far across the stars, the Stellar Accord was about to learn that betrayal has a cost, and humans always collect. The first strike did not come with a declaration of war. There was no warning, no speech, no dramatic broadcast sent across the stars. One moment, the Stellar Accord controlled its territories with absolute confidence. The next, entire systems went silent. At an Accord listening post near the Veli's Rift, operators watched their sensors in confusion. Long-range scanners showed nothing unusual. Trade lanes were clear. Patrol routes were unchanged. Then, without any detectable jump signature, 3 Accord cruisers simply stopped existing. No explosion. No debris field. They were gone. Across the galaxy, similar reports began to appear. Ships vanished mid-transit. Communications relays failed one by one. Automated defenses activated, fired at nothing, then shut down again. The Accord leadership dismissed the early warnings as system failures. Their technology was ancient and reliable. Nothing could bypass their detection nets. Nothing they knew of. On the bridge of the human strike ship Silent Promise, Commander Elias Rourke watched the operation unfold in calm silence. The human fleet moved like shadows, appearing where no ship should be able to exist, striking once, and disappearing again. Human engineers had done something the galaxy believed impossible. They learned how to hide in plain sight. Instead of overpowering Accord sensors, human ships confused them. Reflected signals. Ghost echoes. Delayed returns. Human vessels did not just avoid detection, they rewrote what detection meant. The first confirmed target was an Accord logistics hub supplying 6 labor sectors. Inside those sectors, millions of humans worked under alien supervision. They were fed just enough to survive. Worked until exhaustion. Watched by guards who believed humans were too broken to resist. They were wrong. The attack began with the lights going out. Human strike teams appeared inside the station using microjump technology developed in secret. The corridors filled with confusion as systems failed and doors sealed unpredictably. Human soldiers did not rush. They moved with precision. They targeted control nodes, not civilians. They disabled life support only in guard sections. They used non-lethal weapons when possible, lethal ones when necessary. When the station was secured, Rourke ordered the broadcast. For the first time since Virex Station, humanity spoke to the galaxy. "This is the United Human Defense Force," Rourke said, his voice calm and steady. "We are reclaiming our people. Interfere, and you will be treated as hostile." The message echoed across Accord channels. The response was chaos. Accord commanders argued. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others hesitated. Human ships were striking targets thought unreachable, vanishing before counterattacks could lock on. Worse, they were learning. Every engagement made the humans faster, smarter, deadlier. In liberated labor zones, human prisoners were given a choice: evacuation to hidden safe systems, or the chance to fight back. Most chose to fight. Civilians became resistance cells overnight. Engineers sabotaged alien equipment. Doctors turned medical facilities into intelligence hubs. Farmers became supply coordinators. Humanity had never needed permission to adapt. The Accord finally attempted a coordinated response. Massive fleets were dispatched to crush what they believed was a small insurgent force. They found nothing. Human fleets refused direct confrontation. Instead, they dismantled the Accord piece by piece. Fuel depots vanished. Command ships were isolated and destroyed. Communications collapsed. The galaxy watched in disbelief. The same species once dismissed as children was now dismantling a civilization 10,000 years old, without ever meeting it head-on. Accord species began to panic. Some attempted to withdraw from the alliance, only to discover their leadership had already signed irreversible agreements. Others tried to open secret talks with humanity, offering apologies and excuses. Humanity did not respond. Trust had been spent. On Earth, President Mara Cade watched reports stream in from across the galaxy. Liberation numbers climbed daily. Human losses were minimal compared to earlier wars. For the first time since betrayal, she allowed herself a small, grim smile. They had underestimated not human strength, but human memory. Commander Rourke stood on the bridge as his fleet regrouped after another flawless operation. Around him, his crew looked different than they had years ago. Harder, sharper, but also alive. "They're afraid now," his tactical officer said quietly. Rourke nodded. "They should be." But fear alone was not enough. The Accord still controlled vast territory. They still had numbers. And deep within their core systems was the true heart of their power, the Central Concord, a massive structure where the Alliance's leaders ruled, calculated, and decided the fate of entire species. Human intelligence had finally found it. He stared at the holographic projection of the Concord. It was heavily defended, layered with technology designed to repel entire armadas. Attacking it directly would be suicide. But humans had never survived by doing what was expected. Rourke opened a secure channel to Earth. "Phase 3 is ready," he said. President Cade's reply came without hesitation. "Then do it." As the transmission ended, Rourke looked out into the dark. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity's silence. Now it was time to hear humanity speak, loudly, clearly, and without mercy. And this time, the galaxy would listen. The Central Concord was not a place meant to be attacked. It floated at the heart of Accord space, a colossal structure larger than some moons, layered with shields upon shields. It was not just a command center, it was a symbol, a reminder to every species in the stellar accord that power lived there, watched from there, and judged from there. For 10,000 years, no enemy fleet had ever come close. Humanity did not send a fleet. They sent an idea. Phase 3 began with a signal, so small it was almost meaningless. A burst of data slipped into the Concord's outer communication web, disguised as routine maintenance traffic. Accord systems accepted it without question. Human engineers had studied those protocols for years. They knew the habits, the shortcuts, the assumptions. Inside the Concorde, nothing appeared wrong. Until gravity shifted. Not violently. Not enough to trigger alarms. Just enough to confuse internal calibration systems. Elevators slowed. Navigation inside the structure drifted by fractions of a degree. Automated systems began correcting for errors that did not exist. And in doing so, they opened doors. Human infiltration units emerged from folded space in areas the Accord believed unreachable. Not armies, small teams. Engineers, cyber specialists, and soldiers trained to operate alone for months if needed. Commander Elias Rourke watched the operation unfold from afar. His role was not to fight. It was to decide when the galaxy would finally see the truth. Inside the Concorde, chaos grew quietly. Human code infected decision-making AIS, not by overpowering them, but by forcing them to consider new variables. Uncertainty, deception, human behavior. Accord systems began questioning their own conclusions. For the first time in their history, the Alliance hesitated. That hesitation cost them everything. Across Accord space, something unprecedented happened. Ownership records changed. Control keys transferred. Defense networks quietly accepted new command hierarchies. Humanity did not destroy the Accord's infrastructure. They seized it. Shipyards that once built warships for alien fleets now answered to human command. Resource flows redirected themselves toward rebuilding human worlds. Labor zone controls unlocked, gates opening without alarms. Millions of enslaved humans looked up at silent skies and saw ships bearing a new symbol. Not the flags of Earth. Not military markings. Just a simple message painted across every hull. You are not forgotten. Panic erupted among Accord leadership. Emergency councils were called. Threats were made. Demands issued. Humanity ignored them. Then, finally, The broadcast began. Every screen. Every frequency. Every world. President Mara Cade appeared before the galaxy. She did not shout. She did not threaten. Her voice was steady, tired, and unbreakable. "You betrayed us," she said. "You used our trust, our blood, and our inventions to buy your peace." The galaxy listened. "We are not here for revenge," Cade continued. "We are here for balance, for accountability, and for our people." Behind her, images played, labor camps dissolving, human children returning home, Accord weapons shutting down under human control. "You believed humanity was weak because we shared," she said. "You believed kindness was a flaw." Her eyes hardened. "You were wrong." Across the Concord, the High Arbiters attempted to override systems. They failed. Human control was absolute, not through brute force, but through understanding. Humanity had learned how the galaxy worked, and rewired it. Commander Rourke watched the final confirmation appear on his display. Central Concord. Secured. He exhaled slowly. Not in triumph. In release. The galaxy had expected fire. What humanity delivered was ownership. Within days, the Stellar Accord ceased to exist as a ruling power. Its member species were given a choice: participate in a new interstellar framework built on transparency and consent, or withdraw peacefully. Many chose to stay. Not because they feared humans, but because, for the first time, they trusted them. Human fleets did not occupy worlds. They did not demand tribute. They enforced one rule and one rule only. No species would ever be enslaved again. Humanity did not become conquerors. They became guardians. Still, one final matter remained. The Ravager Empire. The very enemy the Accord had traded humanity to avoid. Deep in Ravager space, their leaders watched reports with growing dread. The alliance they feared had collapsed, not under invasion, but under control. And the species they once considered cattle now commanded the galaxy's greatest infrastructure. The Ravagers prepared for war. Commander Rourke stood before his fleet once more. Not hidden. Not silent. This time, humanity did not hide in the dark. They gathered in the light. "Set course," Rourke ordered calmly. The fleet moved forward, vast, united, unstoppable. Humanity had taken back its people. Now, it would take back the future. The Ravager Empire had always ruled through fear. Their fleets were massive, their weapons brutal, their reputation absolute. Entire civilizations had surrendered the moment Ravager banners appeared in their skies. Resistance meant annihilation. Submission meant survival, at a terrible cost. For centuries, that strategy had worked. Until humanity arrived. Ravager intelligence struggled to understand what had happened to the galaxy. The Stellar Accord, once the greatest collective power, was gone, not destroyed but reshaped. Supply routes no longer answered Ravager bribes. Border systems went dark. Slave markets dried up overnight. Worst of all, a new symbol began appearing on long-range sensors. Human ships. Not a few. Not scattered raiders. An armada. Commander Elias Rourke stood on the command deck of the flagship Unity's Resolve. Around him were officers from Earth, Mars, Luna, and dozens of once enslaved colonies. Humans of every background stood together, not as survivors, but as architects of what came next. "Open the channel," Rourke said. The transmission was sent directly to Ravager High Command. "This is Commander Elias Rourke of the United Human Defense Force," he said calmly. "We are approaching your border systems. We are not here to negotiate surrender through fear." There was a pause. Then the Ravager response came, mocking, cruel. "You are late, little species," the Ravager leader snarled. "You wear stolen power and think it makes you strong." Rourke did not raise his voice. "You misunderstand," he replied. "Nothing we have is stolen. It was earned." The Ravagers attacked. They expected a traditional battle. Lines of ships. Overwhelming force. A short, brutal victory. Instead, their command networks collapsed in seconds. Human AIS flooded Ravager systems with adaptive code, learning and rewriting faster than any organic mind could respond. Ravager weapons turned on false targets. Shields failed at critical moments. Fleets lost coordination and crashed into chaos. Human ships advanced, not recklessly, but relentlessly. They used weapons designed not to erase worlds, but to end wars. Precision strikes dismantled Ravager command vessels. Boarding teams seized control centers. Entire fleets surrendered when they realized their advantage was gone. The Ravagers had never faced an enemy that refused to play by their rules. Within weeks, the empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was broken. Not exterminated. Contained. Humanity offered the Ravagers the same choice once denied to them: end expansion, dismantle slavery, and submit to galactic oversight, or face complete isolation. The Ravagers, for the first time in their history, chose restraint. The war ended not with the burning of worlds, but with the signing of a new galactic charter. Humanity did not place itself above others. They placed responsibility at the center. Years passed. Human children grew up knowing the stars not as threats, but as neighbors. Alien species studied human history, not to mock it, but to learn from it. The phrase HFY spread across the galaxy, no longer as surprise, but as understanding. Humanity, F*****, meant something specific now. It meant creativity under pressure. Unity in the face of betrayal. Strength without cruelty. Commander Rourke retired quietly. President Mara Cade stepped down after overseeing the first peaceful transfer of galactic authority. Humanity did not cling to power. They had never wanted to rule. They wanted to belong. And the galaxy, forever changed, finally understood the cost of betraying humanity, and the power of trusting them instead.